I'm Suzanne Murdoch, and welcome to Series 2 of Powering Productivity. Each episode, I explore the energy that connections, expertise, and being in your best flexible working environment can bring to not just your business, but to your whole life. So let's get started. Welcome, I'm your host, Suzanne Murdoch, and today I'm with the lovely Victoria Salomon, founder of Ixchel Therapies. As a pain and movement specialist, Victoria works with people with various underlying health challenges, worries and stresses, both in the home and in the workplace. She's a very unique approach and toolkit to help you function and gradually move from states, of paralysis or burnout into optimum, consistent productivity, be it in the workplace, the home or personal life. And using her own life experiences of recovering from pain and trauma, she's created the Ixchel system to help you enjoy the freedom of an energized and happy life. So this month, we're really looking at humanity in the workplace. It's very topical and I guess can affect so many of us with similar challenges and struggles a lot of us face, but from different perspectives. So whatever your business journey or role, these can show up in different guises, be it emotional, lack of motivation, physical, stress. So it's important to realize that although we do have these underlying challenges, there are coping strategies and solutions and workplace models in place that can really go a long way to helping solve some of those. And I think we really need to be a bit more open to exploring and being there for each other. So Victoria, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Suzanne, and I'm thrilled to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your story to date, Victoria, and how you got to where you are now.
It's a very long story, I suppose, because the nature of what I do relates to my whole lifetime. You know, health and well-being doesn't start at a particular time. You know, who we are is almost begins when we're in the womb after conception. But I basically had a very challenging upbringing. I was around a lot of suicide, a lot of mental health problems, and by the time I was in my mid-teens, I was very ill myself. And I didn't have any understanding that, you know, when you're living in a disordered kind of environment energetically, it literally disorders your body. You know, you are under stress the whole time. Only it's normal to you. So it was normal to me. So by the time I was 18, I had a nervous breakdown. By the time I was 20, I had a physical breakdown, at which point it was discovered that I have something called celiac disease. So that was basically where my digestive system had as an autoimmune disease kind of, you know, become a big problem, and I was totally malnourished because I couldn't absorb anything. So back in 1990, I learned what gluten was. I know now everyone knows what it is, but back then no one knew what it was. So I haven't been eating gluten for about 32 years now. And it did change my life, you know, and who would have thought that something you eat could change the way you think, the way you feel, your energy levels, you know. But for me, it had destroyed my education. Those years when I was ill, I dropped out, I couldn't study, so I couldn't concentrate, I couldn't communicate with people, I couldn't care for myself properly. So all of these things that actually we need in the workplace today, I remember one doctor saying to me once, Victoria, you've been to the University of Life, you know, when I was saying I didn't get to go to university when all my friends did, you know. So it was a very, very early education of how health can destroy many, many areas of our lives, which then affects us psychologically, emotionally, it impacts our relationships. And unfortunately, what I did all those years ago to try and cope with how I felt, both in terms of because of my own health and that of the mental health and issues around me, I turned to drugs because I had nowhere to go to process what I was feeling. And it was what I was experiencing was so bad, and it's classic, you know, I discovered a lot later in life, that's what you do. If you don't have the correct support around you, you will find a way to self-medicate, whatever that may be. And I did. I was a classic example of that. And of course, that led me into a lot more problems, because when you're addicted to something, not only is it suppressing the things you don't want to feel, it's also suppressing your, sorry, this is my dog poking his head. It's suppressing your creativity, your productivity, your capacity to function well in many areas. And then my father committed suicide. It was the final suicide when I was 25, and that floored me. To be honest, Suzanne, it absolutely floored me, because I'd had a father then and both his parents all take their own lives. And so the calling for me was, how do you take care of yourself? You know, how do you keep yourself well enough to function? And I suppose, you know, that was half a lifetime ago. And all the years since then have been my journey of discovery, which has included 12-step therapy, 12-step fellowships to get over addiction, but more importantly, an education in different therapeutic processes. So rather than medicalizing whatever was going on inside me, looking at the different systems of the body and how different systems need different types of attention to allow you to self-regulate and be the best you can be in any environment, whether it's your personal life, your working life, whatever it is, as a mother. You know.
But that's what I find so fascinating, is that it really does affect every aspect of your life, and you have to have, so many people don't even have the awareness of the underlying challenges that are inside them, and obviously then the ripple effects of how it's affecting different aspects of their life. So how did you then come to design and scope the Ixchel therapy program?
So there's Ixchel therapies. So basically, I first trained as in holistic therapies, where in the late 90s, it was very much a journey of trying to heal myself at the time. You know, I went and learned things like reflexology, aromatherapy, massage, but I didn't practice. I did my case studies, but I didn't practice because I felt incredibly inauthentic, because I was still struggling with addiction, to be quite honest with you. And I'm a great believer that if one feels toxic, it's not correct to put your hands or your energy on someone else's body in a healing capacity. So even though I trained, I didn't practice. And then I had both my children, and that was my low point, if I'm honest, when I had 2 children and I was still struggling with addiction. So I, at that point, got help for the addiction, got off that. And then a couple of years after I set up my clinic, it actually just happened. I remember I was on Vistaprint. Do you remember Vistaprint?
Yeah.
And I just suddenly put in This Little Piggy Reflexology and made these business cards called This Little Piggy Reflexology. And they were free, and they landed in my home, and then a friend walked in and said, "Oh, I want some reflexology. Who's this?" And I was like, "Well, actually, I am a reflexologist." And she was like, "I never knew that," you know, because I hadn't spoken about it. And very quickly, the right space to work from kind of manifested, and it was just, it just all flowed in my local community. My clinic was right opposite the primary school of my daughter. It was just like the world went.
Meant to be.
This is where you're meant to be right now. And clients came, and what I began to notice was I would get really good results with people. Like intuitively, I could work with people, but I didn't know why I was getting those results, because the training that I'd had for holistic therapies was great, but it was actually pretty shallow. In terms of understanding the body, it gave me some tools to use to get results, but it didn't explain why I got the results. So then I went off and I did a degree in clinical massage. And within that, I learned the body. I learned how muscles are designed to move. I learned different techniques. I learned how to understand what listening to the body is. Yeah. And I also began to learn to understand how trauma gets stuck in the body. And so that all started coming into my clinic. I then finished the degree, and then I became really fascinated at people's capacity to create their own pain. Like, we know, if you don't eat well or if you do this, you might create a health challenge. But it's like when people create their own pain, and yet they're walking around in this body and they have no sense whatsoever when they get a pain condition that's got anything to do with anything that they're doing. It's quite fascinating, whether it's a shoulder problem or a back problem. So they come along, I could release the pain, and then they'd go and put it right back in their body. So then I also had trained as a systematic kinesiologist, actually, which enabled me to understand how nutrition worked in the body, different muscles in the body relate to needing different nutrients. So I'd done that. And then I went and trained as a gait analyst, basically biomechanics. Yeah, the way we move is called biomechanics, and our gait is the way we walk. So, for example, if you go to an osteopath or a chiropractor, they will assess you when you're standing still, possibly when you're sitting down, and when you bend over. But actually, within every footstep we take, there are, according to my teacher, Gary Ward, there are 6 different postures that our body is designed to access, with the process of taking one footstep. Now, what's this got to do with your health? Well, whether it's from an injury or from an emotional experience like grief or anger or anything where you've learned to almost contract and hold your body, when you contract, you are actually collapsing and putting a lot of pressure on organs in your body. Yeah, it's fascinating. It sounds so simple, doesn't it?
But it is, because I've been through this process with you, Victoria.
Yeah.
And I guess it's given me a real awareness of what you're talking about now. So now, for example, I'm not analysing everyone that walks past me or in the workplace or anything, but you can tell. And certain people do walk as if they're holding themselves, or they hurt, part of their body hurts.
Yeah.
And you can tell that they just need to release that.
Yeah.
So part of that for me comes back to, being there, being aware in the workplace, and having those open conversations, and the signposting for solutions and help as well.
Yeah. And the workplace, I mean, my history is I haven't officially worked for anyone else since I was 25. And I think I had a very traumatic ending to work. I worked in the city. I mean, I actually was Sir Dennis Thatcher's PA for a while, and then which is bizarre. And then I worked in the city, but I wasn't happy. It really was. I felt like I was in the rat race. I was stuck working in a particular way because I hadn't been able to go to university, so it was still the legacy. And the relationships I had with people and with that environment were ones that didn't make me particularly happy. And if you are feeling like that a lot of the time in your workplace, then that is having an impact on every cell in your body, which is fascinating.
Absolutely. And you mentioned to me there the other day, respecting others in the workplace, and that you'd heard 75% of people leave their jobs because of bad relationships with people that they work with.
A really lovely gentleman, Steve Charlton, who comes and talks at this co-working space that I'm based at, he got that figure out in his presentation, and I was like, wow, because that was my experience,
and that's huge, right? And that's I have to say, that's why I left my job in the city. Fantastic job. It was really hard to get in there. I loved it up to a certain point, and then this just happened. And you feel stuck. Actually, that word paralysis, I did feel paralyzed. Mentally, physically, emotionally.
Yeah. And when you've got that paralysis feeling, if we look at the nervous system, which is something that I really like to teach people about, you know, a great model is called the Polyvagal theory, and it divides your nervous system into 3 areas. And you have this area kind of based in your gut called your dorsal vagal. And when you feel threatened or under attack, you're either going to go into fight or flight, or if it's relentless and you become tired, or you do feel completely trapped, like you can't run away from it, you can't fight it, you just feel trapped, you then go into this sense of paralysis. It's like, what can I do? But guess what? It's not just what's going on in your relationship. That starts to happen in the organs. Literally, it shuts down energy to part of your body, your rest and digest, which means that you're then not actually, your body isn't functioning. You're in this state of high alert rather than energy production.
Yeah.
And this is where, you know, the knock-on effect, Suzanne, on people's health is.
But it's huge, and it can be the way you speak to people, behavioral outputs, the way that, you know, the way you communicate with people can have so many different varieties of outputs, negative. Well, most of them are negative, I would say.
Yeah,
it's, you know, how do you have that awareness of what's happening to you, and where do you find the help?
Well, I think this is the big thing, isn't it? The help is out there. It's funny, I had someone just here this morning reach out to me, you know, saying, I'm feeling like this. It made me think of you. Can I come and see you? Because I don't know what to do. You know, she's left being in a particular situation, and yet, you know, she's in that state of, and it's like, yeah, people don't know what to do. So what you need to do ultimately is, I believe, from my own experience, start to get the tools to self-regulate. And what does that mean? Well, self-regulate, if you think you have these different nervous systems, so you've got, if we look at the polyvagal theory, and I can give you a slide that can illustrate it, you've got one area of your nervous system that, when under threat, will just immobilize you. You've got this other area which is based in your spinal column, which is about mobilization. Yeah, so that's your fight or flight. And then you've got this other area which is kind of based in your upper body and your heart area, which is about safety and connection. So the first key thing is to try and regulate yourself to creating something that feels safe for yourself. And obviously you've done my get into your body process, and that takes it to a real extreme of, I believe, from my own experience, if we can connect with one sensation of safety, even in our own body, that is the beginning. Yeah, because
it is, and it's almost like a coping strategy, a management strategy that you can keep coming back to.
Yes.
If you know those trigger points.
Yep. Yeah.
And for me, sorry to interrupt, but for me, it was opening up to other people as well, so that they also know what's happening. They know the trigger points. If you feel comfortable, they know the trigger points. And if you don't see them, someone else will, and they'll just, you know, I just saw that, or you just said that. Do you think?
Yeah. And that is the safe and social. So we are not designed to live in isolation. We are designed to be connected. So the question is, when you're connecting, and we call this co-regulation as well, are we connecting in a way that soothes us? Or are we connecting in a way that sends us into alert? And this can be explicit, so a kind of external, where we connect, or implicit, which is more about our unconscious connection. So are we able to connect either to things that send us out of self-regulation or into self-regulation? And you know, there are simple tools, but obviously one of the issues is when we go into a state of stress, high stress, we can lose the capacity to think clearly. Yeah, we're so we're so disconnected, and then we tend to create. We're not in the state we need to get ourselves into the state we need to get ourselves into. So it really is about getting some perspective, and I believe having tools to remind you yourself and understanding the different parts of the nervous system, the way they kick off, and also having it's getting into your body. I always believe you have to feel it to heal it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you used the analogy there the other day that we're a bit like cars.
Yes.
If you don't maintain your health and well-being, like you'd service a car, it's just going to stop functioning.
Absolutely. And are you going excuse me, are you going to use the slide? Because I can talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll put that on the website afterwards.
Okay, so when we have the car, sorry, I'm also going to bring it up while I'm talking to you now for myself. So when we have this car analogy, I love it because people know they need to look after their cars, right? They just know they do. They don't expect their car to keep going if they don't take care of it and put fuel in it. I mean, they so need to take care of their cars that it's a legal requirement. Yeah,
yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah,
us as humans, we don't have that legal requirement. Yeah. And you think of what we're responsible for in life.
Absolutely. But your car, you have to get an MOT. Yeah. If the basics aren't in place, it's seen as a potential danger and threat, to all the other people and cars on the road. So what if we looked at ourselves like this? And if we look at the slide, so a car is made up of wheels, you've got the body of the car, you've got the fuel of the car, you've got the capacity for the car to have good suspension, when stress kicks in, to be able to cope with it. And then you look at us. So in this slide, first we've got our genetics, the very cells that create us. So generally, when someone comes into me, they'll go, oh, well, my mum had this, or my dad had this, or, so they're already telling me they kind of don't expect to get better because their mother or father had it. So that's kind of like the genetics. That's what we've inherited. And by the way, I don't believe that at all. It's just about reprogramming, each individual's body. Yes, there could be a tendency to weakness, but what we do about that is a whole different matter. So we've also got our posture and our structure. So this is a big one. Some people come into me and they'll say, oh yeah, I've got this kind of collapsed back because my mother or father had it. And it's just not good enough to me. That's not a good enough reason. We can do something about that. We've got trauma. Yeah. So if you have experienced things, so if your car's been in a crash, it probably needs some attention. Yeah. But as humans, we have this capacity of, oh, well, it's over now, and we'll just kind of pretend that hasn't even happened, or we'll try and get on as if it hasn't happened. Whereas energetically, we've potentially still got that damage lying low inside us. And then we have these different ways that we process life and personality traits. So we might be someone that's very anxious, or we may be someone who feels we need to help people all the time. Or people pleaser. You're constantly trying to be something for someone else because very often you're exhausted, and it's more that you wish someone would be like that for you. Yeah. And then we've got other systems. You've got your adrenals, your immune system, your digestion, and it's all more baggage that's part of the car. Yeah. All of these systems need attention. And I believe, especially in the workplace, we become exceptionally mindless to our bodies.
Yeah, because all we think at the end of the day is productivity, output, revenue.
Yeah.
And we don't take a few steps back and look at, okay, the revenue isn't coming in. My productivity obviously isn't high enough. Why isn't it? Yeah. And what are the underlying reasons for that?
Yeah.
I mean, I pick you up on a couple of, you've got your posture, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Workspaces have come a long way now. The ergonomics are better from that side of things. We have a lot of people who are trained in mental health first aid.
Mm-hmm.
there is that there, but I think there's still a long way to go for people themselves to feel, to be able to open up, to have that confidence to talk about their underlying concerns, their worries. You know, we can all go around having these real niggling questions about certain things in our job, thinking no one else knows the answer. I must be on my own. No one else is going to be worrying about that, staying up at night, Googling absolutely everything. But you could have someone next door who knows the answer, who's worried, found the answer, but because you think it's such a silly, niggly thing, you're not going to talk to them. So I think there has to be a lot more openness around certain areas.
So there's two things there that I'd like to address. So the first thing is the not sharing what you're experiencing because you feel like you just need to appear to be okay. I mean, one of the biggest pressures, and I've had this in my own life, is when you feel like you just need to be silent about something that actually for you is huge and is running you. So then you have that sense of disconnect, you know, you're not engaged. Whereas actually, you know, I shared something recently and then other people were able to connect with me and reach out to me. Whereas if I hadn't been able to share that, and you've got to feel safe to be able to share things.
Yeah, see, that's the key word there is safe.
Absolutely.
And comfortable, because until you've built those relationships, you're not going to feel comfortable.
And regulation is all, you know, self-regulation starts with safety. You know, you walk into a room. So one of the things I teach about is something called neuroception. And so that's basically, you know, when you walk into a room, you immediately get a feeling, a sensation. You're not thinking about it, but it's like, you know, you might walk into an ambient room and you just immediately feel relaxed, or you walk into a very stark lighting and, you know, you feel it, don't you? So we feel that in the energy with people. We'll feel it, you know, you'll feel it with the person sitting next to you. Like you might be like, oh, they're sitting there. So you just feel nicer, or they're sitting there and you feel more on edge, you know.
So the environment comes down to it, the environment that you're in, be it in an office or outside in a garden.
Yeah, and there you go. There we have what impacts our posture. So if you're sitting next to someone and you're feeling actually really on guard, you might be sitting in a really nice chair for posture, but your muscles could be completely contracted, and kind of locked because you're feeling very on edge. And this has a huge impact on your structure and the way your body holds itself. Or you could be sitting somewhere and you feel really relaxed, and then everything can flow. The different systems in your body are going to be working. And the other thing with posture, which, you know, I mean, I'm here in a very large co-working space at Plus X, and it's not about the chair. It's about the body that's sitting in the chair. And everyone's got different alignments going on. Everyone's got, you know, some people's pelvises are posteriorly tilted, some are anteriorly tilted.
You go around analysing how everyone's sitting
some are right or left tilted. You know, so this all chairs fits one body is again, it's not the individual, it's not for the individual. And I suppose in the workplace, we can feel like we're not an individual. We are more of a product, aren't we?
Or a number.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. So we've got these different cool toolkits and coping mechanisms. And with all this going on, I'm thinking, okay, you've got to be aware of so much. How on earth are you going to get any work done? Well, that's fine. But we have these coping strategies. But is it fair to say that we all have blips in the road?
Yeah.
You know, it's not all going to be hunky-dory every day of all the year. So what am I trying to say here? So I think, to me, as long as you have these techniques, these tools in your kit, you can really hone in on them when you need them.
Yeah. And, you know, at the moment, I'm working with Ukrainians. You know, I'm part of an organization, and it's not, this isn't therapy. This is tools to use in times of stress to try to regulate your body. So, you know, I have a podcast, The Positive Power of Pain, which is based on a continuum of, you know, what different levels of stress or pain are telling you. and you would need different tools for different levels of stress. Yeah, you need a toolkit that is there waiting and ready to be used depending on whether you're just maintaining your health or whether, as you say, you've got this real blip, like overwhelm, total overload. So the tools you're going to need to use then are going to be sometimes similar but applied more rigorously, and also, you know, you may need to, it's different tools for different jobs, isn't it? And in terms of the positive power of pain, so the continuum is on a scale of 10. So I believe 1 to 7, you know, whether it's stress or pain or illness, each level of that, 1 is hardly anything, but it's a tiny rumble. 2, 3 is you're aware it's there. Maybe you need to use a tool to, you know, to do something, whether it's go for a walk, speak to a friend, some body work, some breath, you know, whatever it could be. 4, 5, it's like it's building up. It may be that you're neglecting to use the level 2 to 3 tools. So it's becoming more because, you know, you might be driven by, but I've got to do this, or you know, your kids needing more attention or whatever it is. And then we get to 6 or 7, and these are the interesting numbers, because I believe at this point you have a choice. You are either going to listen to yourself and you're not going to dismiss these levels of stress or discomfort, and you are going to get the tools out, and they will be a combination of connecting with other people and environments that make you feel safe, and connecting internally with yourself. Again, with creating, and safety, by the way, if you're at work, can be as simple as going and shutting the toilet door and coming back into your body using things like we do in Get Into Your Body or other processes. You can bring yourself into a state of safety in 60 seconds. You can, yeah. It doesn't have to be a big deal, but you need to do it, and you want to do it regularly, because the idea is to keep resetting your nervous system so that it almost becomes like a habit.
Even blocking things into your diary, reminders into your phone.
For sure. You know, if you're sitting down and you're sedentary, then getting up regularly, you know, through the day, getting out, going and breathing fresh air, you know, sending a text to someone you love. There are different people will have different tools that bring them into a state of rest and digest, which is what we talk about as practitioners. You know, you've got fight or flight, life threat, or rest and digest, which is when the body can reset itself. Now, the issue, the big deal, is when you move into 8 to 10. Yeah, this is what I describe as trauma. And at this point, your body has gone into something that is known as cell danger response. And it's literally the cells in your body, because it's a level of pain, a level of stress, a health challenge, whatever it is, and it can't switch off. So the problem is, for a lot of people, you know, and this is where diseases like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, ME, or even chronic back pain, chronic shoulder pain, it's that the body has literally lost the capacity to regulate itself when it gets into a place of safety. So if you are at work and you're really stressed, but you go home and you can unwind and move yourself into rest and digest, then you're probably still on the scale coming up, you know, and you as far as 7. If you're someone who goes home and you are not able to switch off, and your body, and you may not be aware of it, by the way, this is where it's really crafty, because the body normalizes stress. So a great analogy is the frog who jumps into boiling water, like mega stress, and just jumps right out again. Yeah, the frog is regulating itself. It knows stress, it moves itself away from stress, boom. Whereas if this frog is in cold water, and the water's turned up gradually, the frog gets used to it, doesn't notice, and ends up being boiled alive. Doesn't jump out. And we are like this. And so the 8 to 10 level is far harder to deal with. And this is where burnout comes in. It's where in the workplace, someone's behavior, that they might not be able to communicate with people. Yeah. Or they might be very angry or very, it's just not conducive to.
But I have to hold my hands up. I've been in that situation. I've been in that situation. So I have to manage my energy very, very carefully now, because I've been in that 8 to 10.
Yeah.
Come back down now. But you have to be so wary of that burnout and the balancing your energy levels.
And, sometimes life is going to happen. We are all going to have periods of extreme stress. We are all going to have deadlines. We are all going to get ill at some point or another. But the question is, what is our level of resilience? How are we taking care of the car? Yeah. But when that happens, we have the capacity to recover normally. And if you can't recover normally, so you may be someone who's been working for years in a high-powered job very successfully, and then what happens is one day you've got a relationship breakdown, or someone may have died, or something extreme has happened, and you cannot recover from it. It's like it's floored you, and you blame everything on that event. Now, I'm maybe controversial here, but what I would say is some people really easily could keep functioning with that. The difference is whether over a period of time your body has been getting weaker, different systems have been becoming more and more overloaded, and it's more a case of the straw that breaks the camel's back. So this is why we need to take care. We need to take care of ourselves in the workplace. Employers need to be investing in this, because even today I was reading some headlines. I don't watch too much of the news, by the way, because that puts you into fight or flight or life threat right now.
It does.
It's not good for your nervous system. If there's one tool I would suggest, yes, look at the news, but limit the time that you take in information that literally depletes your sense of safety, okay? Because it's not necessarily going to change anything. And a good tool is to really make sure you are limiting how often you are creating alerts for what you're sensing. You may think you need to sit for hours watching things where other people are suffering, but actually what you need to be doing is regulating your nervous system, checking in with, how does this actually make me feel? Does it make me feel happy? Does it make me feel bad? If it makes you feel bad, limit it.
I like that. That's very simple.
Yeah.
But I mean, you were mentioning employers, and I think there is a lot more focus now on underlying conditions and changes in our lifestyle, the likes of the menopause in the workplace, rearing children, families. I think there is a lot more awareness of that and help, but I think there's still a long way to go there.
Yeah, there is a long way to go, because menopause itself, I hit the menopause when I was 42. I had all the weight escalation, I had all of those different bits, and as a practitioner you need to be able to walk the talk, and actually I knocked it on the head with, it all got out of hand, but I needed some time. I did need to take time out to investigate, and I mean, menopause is a whole other area. So,
yeah, we won't go down too far down that road.
But, with the right information, I'm going to be really controversial here. You can knock a lot of the menopause symptoms on the head within 21 days. That's my
experience. I agree to some extent on that, but I do think you need the support from people
precisely.
around you.
Yeah. So you need to know how. You need the tools. And how do you know who to trust? How do you know which direction to go to? And I cannot even begin to imagine how I could have navigated the last 10 years of my life if I had not understood my body, understood the systems of my body enough to regulate the different systems in my body. And when I see women struggling with menopause, or men struggling with different health challenges or whatever it is, the struggles are really coming from a lack of understanding of how your body works.
So just moving it on, how do you offer this support and the awareness training actually in workplaces?
Yes. So my vision is to create a system. Well, I have created the system where you basically start by understanding the nuts and bolts of your body. Okay, because it's all well and good relying on a garage to fix your car, but when you are the car, the ultimate thing is to be able to adjust yourself. Yeah. So I've created a system where, again, if we look at the car, you understand, you literally learn how your posture and structure is designed to work. So how your bones and joints are designed. And people simply shoving their shoulders back for posture is not good posture. It is putting terrible strain on your shoulder joints.
Could you speak to my husband, please, Victoria?
Oh my goodness. Good posture starts from the feet. It starts from, your feet are the one part of your body that connects with the ground. Yeah, every step you take. And literally the way your foot connects with the ground, the way it's able to support the weight of your body with gravity doing its thing is where we start. So as you know, I've created the Get Into Your Body course, and there's also a Get Into Your Body at Work part of that. And it's learn your body. And as you discovered, Suzanne, you very quickly can tweak and realign. You understand, oh, that's a bit uncomfortable. Oh, so I need to do this. Oh, that's.
But it seems so simple looking back now, having that knowledge. It's just implanted in my body. Yeah. But at the time, I'm thinking, how on earth can I take all this on board?
I know, and it because it's an experience. You can't think your way into good posture. It's a different brain. Yeah, and it's where safety is. That's the beauty of the Get Into Your Body, that something quite magical happens as you start to feel that engagement and that support within you. It self-regulates your nervous system.
It reprograms automatically after a while. Yes. The body is just amazing the way it does that.
So rather than suppressing and medicating different sensations, we bring you in to connecting with the source and power. I mean, that might sound a bit strange, but we all have incredible power within us. And when we engage and align ourselves correctly, things just switch on. I was doing a podcast with my teacher the other day, and I was saying what's extraordinary is people with exercise, for example, spend so much time trying to strengthen muscles or trying to get energy or trying to believe me, if you're trying, it's not working. It's either is or it isn't. You're either switched on or you're not. So you need to learn the switch on buttons, and that's what Get Into Your Body does. And then once we've got that kind of stronger container in the body, and you, by the way, these processes, as you know, they're designed to do in the shopping queue or when you're boiling the kettle or you waiting for the bus. These are not processes, but all of them which you need to take hours.
Can I just interject now? I used one of those processes while standing in a huge queue for a roller coaster.
Exactly. And
it worked.
For sure. And as teachers have said to me, Victoria, now I stand in class all day and it's effortless. Yeah, it's effortless because I've taught them to posteriorly tilt their pelvis or to shift their pelvis kind of up and down in frontal plane. I've taught them things which switched them on rather than collapse.
We're going to have to wrap this up soon, but what's next for you? What plans do you have coming up?
Well, I've put together the Ixchel system, which, I now want to be taking into workplaces wherever I can. And, just to add, so essential nutrition is part of that. And also, obviously, the stress resilience tools. So I want to take, I suppose, what I've been doing one-to-one with clients for years and years, into organizations, but also into charities and victims of trauma. I want to take this system that basically encompasses the tools that are needed to get all the different systems in the body in harmony and resilient, so that we've got the internal resources to deal with the levels of stress that are coming at us. Because the more stress there is, the more you need the tools. It's that seesaw. Yeah. So that's where I'm at now. And as you know, I've been working so hard at putting this together, and I'm really excited to share it.
No, I'm excited for you. So where can people find out more about you?
So you can go to my website, which is ixcheltherapies.co.uk, and there is a section there which is about well-being in the workplace. And also, if it's for individuals, then there are programs for individuals there as well, which obviously over the years is more how I've worked. And also I'm running programs online, so you have remote access to all of these practices, and also they are courses which you can use on your own as well. Okay. So I've designed the system so that it's very accessible face to face, or you can do it in your own self-learning way, or you can do it as part of on remote groups where.
So can employers reach out to you directly if they're interested for their teams, etc.?
Absolutely. And I want them to, because I've created a platform to make this as accessible as possible. And what I've been told is that very often the problem is recognized, but the toolkit is not necessarily there. And I think, as you know, what's different with what I do is we are teaching people about their bodies. We are teaching them what's actually causing the issue. So rather than just trying to medicate or kind of soothe symptoms, we're going in and going, okay, let's work out what's caused this, and let's turn that off and turn on the good stuff.
Okay, well, we have to wrap up unfortunately, but it's been brilliant. Thank you so much for your time.
And thank you for having me.
You have been a godsend, certainly to me personally, and I think enlightening everyone on what we've talked about. Yeah. So good luck with everything you're doing in the future, and thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Take good care.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget that all the episodes and links are on our website, thehubnui.com. While you're there, you can stay tuned with what we're up to by subscribing to our mailing list. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks again for being here. Powering Productivity is presented by me, Suzanne Murdoch, and produced by Emily Crosby Media.